The David Braun era at Northwestern is upon us as the former North Dakota State defensive coordinator has been named as the interim head coach of the Wildcats. What needs to happen for the Purple Cats to make the most out of the upcoming 2023 season?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Boy, has there been a lot of negativity in Evanston, Illinois this week. Of course, what's going on the football side of things with the firing of Pat Fitzgerald. Not too much better on the baseball side of things. Athletics in Evanston, Illinois has taken a major hit, a major reputation hit this week. But on the football side of things, it's time to move on and it's time to move forward. And the Northwestern administration is moving forward with David Braun as the interim head coach of this football team. Of course, he was brought in back in January. Pat Fitzgerald hired him to be the new defensive coordinator of this team, of this program. And now he's a head coach in the Big Ten Conference, right? He goes from, I'm jumping to making the coordinator jump from FCS, Missouri Valley Football Conference, up to the Big Ten, right? That's a sizable jump. And then, now you're going to be the head coach of this program that's in the midst of a hazing scandal. That is a monumental jump for David Braun. With a monumental jump comes a monumental opportunity for the young coach right now. This is as big of an opportunity as you are going to get in this coaching profession, considering where David Braun was even back in December, right? When they were going November and December, when North Dakota State was going through their FCS playoff run. With a great opportunity that David Braun has in front of them comes some great challenges, some monumental challenges in front of him right now. Now, the first thing that David Braun needs to do is create stability within this football program. There's so many questions. There's so many things, so many rumors, everything kind of floating around this program. You need to find a way to bring everybody together, create some stability. Get out that old-fashioned calendar in the office. Flip it to August, get out that red Sharpie, and circle August 9th. Because that is the 30-day deadline after Pat Fitzgerald was fired, where players can hop in the transfer portal and hop their way out of Evanston, Illinois. You need to formulate a plan to try to retain as many of these kids as possible. David Braun is going to have a lot of challenges on the football field this fall at Northwestern. But his biggest challenge, maybe his most important challenge, is going to be on the recruiting trail in these next 3 or 4 weeks. And that recruiting trail runs right along Lake Michigan. He's going to be recruiting some of his own guys to stay at Northwestern against, some of these other schools are calling some of the better players on this team, the Bryce Gallaghers, the Xander Muellers on the defensive side of the ball. What about A.J. Henning, a guy that just got here from Michigan that can definitely add to a lot of teams around the country? I think there's kind of two schools of thought with two different types of players on this football team right now. Of course, you've got transfers that just got here. I mentioned a few of them. You look at A.J. Henning. How about quarterback Ben Bryant? Richie Haggerty from Southern Illinois on the defensive line was maybe slated to make an impact. Yes, these guys were just brought in by Pat Fitzgerald, but they don't have a super long-standing relationship with Northwestern football right now. So there's not that built-in pride, maybe so to speak, so they could as easily as they hopped in and hopped over to Evanston, Illinois, they could easily hop right back out without the guy that brought them in Pat Fitzgerald. And then you take a look at the guys that have been here for a few years, that were recruited by Pat Fitzgerald out of high school, that bought in to what Pat Fitzgerald was selling them, and they've been in this program for a few years, and they've gotten used to a certain way of doing things. And now you bring in a brand new guy that's never coached in the FBS, that's never been a head coach. All of a sudden there's a lot of uncertainty, and all of a sudden maybe you want to transfer out now that the guy isn't there, Pat Fitzgerald, that brought you there in the first place, and that had been coaching you and that had been developing you for the last few seasons. So those are kind of the two things that David Braun has to battle right now in keeping these kids at Northwestern. It is not going to be easy. But what David Braun needs to do what's the message? What's the message that David Braun needs to preach? David Braun has an opportunity of a lifetime, and he needs to preach that same opportunity to these kids right now. David Braun speaking, I have been given this opportunity. You have an opportunity to stick around and to make something of this right now. He's got to rally the troops around the idea of an opportunity that this season can be something. You've got to reflect and you've got to portray some positivity to these kids, because the outside noise, maybe even in the administration, are portraying some negativity right now within this program. It is up to David Braun to portray that positivity, to rally the troops, to get him back in here and to put a respectable team on the football field. Because if that positivity isn't portrayed, if he can't rally the troops, if he can't keep a lot of this team intact, this thing could go off the rails real quick. And David Braun seems like a smart guy. I think he knows that. I think he knows who he has to keep in Evanston, Illinois, who he has to keep at Northwestern here this season. But you need to form a bond quickly. I watched an interview that David Braun did on the Northwestern Athletics YouTube page, and he says it takes time to build relationships, and that's what he wanted to do. I'm very curious to see what kind of relationships he's built since he's been the defensive coordinator. What did he build with throughout spring ball? Was he able to build those relationships on defense, and maybe with some of the other guys, but was he able to build those relationships enough for them to trust him now in this type of situation? That's what I'm very curious of. Now, here's something that I want to pull from an ESPN article. It says, quote, Braun had been essentially operating as the head coach since Fitzgerald's firing on Monday. Players had expressed in the team meeting that naming him the interim coach would give them some of the clarity and continuity they were seeking for moving forward. So I think this was a smart decision, one, naming him head coach, because he hadn't been a part of this alleged hazing in the past, of course, and naming him quickly, and so guys can buy in, so David Braun can try to establish these relationships as quick as possible to try to keep these kids in Northwestern this season. I'm very curious to see what David Braun can do as the head coach. You got a completely new set of eyeballs. You've got a fresh perspective on coaching and on this Northwestern football program. I think players are going to rally behind him. Players are going to rally with an us against the world mentality, or they could get turned off in this program. You need to convince that it might be a throwaway year. Somehow, some way, David Braun needs to convince everybody wearing purple that this is not a throwaway year. This is something, we can do something this year. That's what he needs to portray throughout this Northwestern program. It is going to be interesting to see what David Braun can do as the head coach of this program. If he can retain a lot of these players, us against the world mentality, it is dangerous, folks. When someone has that motivation, when kids have that motivation, when coaches have that motivation, anything can happen. And anything might happen with Northwestern football this season.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.